Welcome back to the Nerd Review. This is the first episode of Season 2, the show where we talk about movies, TV shows, video games, books, and comic books. This is episode 1, and today we're talking about Transformers. And that is a huge scope. There are 6 live-action movies, the upcoming 7th movie, Rise of the Beasts, which I am super excited for, a score of animated feature-length films, and 22 different animated series, spanning almost 40 years. It'll be 40 years next September, when the original series, The Transformers, the pilot episode, first aired September 17th, 1984. So there's 40 years of amazing content that spans TV, the big screen, comic books, and video game adaptations. Everything we love here at the Nerd Review. So let's jump into Transformers. So to narrow that scope a bit, I'm going to look at it from my perspective as a kind of second generation fan of Transformers. I was born in 94, so 10 years after Transformers had already been established, and there was a whopping 5 series and a movie already out. And by the time I'm around and I'm growing up, the first series that I would be introduced to was Beast Wars from 1996 to 1999. So I couldn't be more excited for the new Beast Wars live action adaptation. There was a Netflix series that included the Beast Wars, so I'm loving all the attention to what I consider my OG Transformers series. Now, to focus this down, I decided to limit this episode, this Transformers review, on the series that I grew up with and the first movie. So that's the Beast Wars series that I already mentioned, and Transformers Armada from 2002-2003, which, funnily enough, also has 52 episodes. And of course, the first Michael Bay Transformers movie from 2007, which really formed a great foundation for me to be a huge Transformers fan. By 2007, I was in my first year of high school, which I can't believe was already like 16 years ago. You know, time flies. And so just all of these, Transformers series, from Beast Wars to Armada through there was a couple other iterations from between 2003 and 2007, one of the 22 different animated series that I mentioned. So let's focus on those series and just how amazing they were and what they were about. And let's go back to Beast Wars. So like I said, 1996 to 1999 had 3 seasons, 52 episodes. It was one of the earliest CGI TV shows utilizing that new computing power. It actually won a Daytime Emmy Award in 97 for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation, and was the first Transformers series to feature computer animated characters. It was already the 5th Transformers series by 1996. In the 12 years since the Transformers franchise had been launched, there was already 4 animated series and a movie, which is incredible. It's also known as Transformers in Canada, which I think is really cool because it was produced by Mainframe Entertainment of Vancouver, BC. So that's pretty cool. I always, thought it was not only is it the first, Transformers series that I grew up with, but it's also like Canadian Transformers, eh? That's always nice. It stars, it's not the Autobots and the Decepticons this time around in Beast Wars. It's the Maximals versus the Predacons. So a little bit of homework for anybody who's going to go see the upcoming movie, which, like, I've already mentioned it in the intro, but like, I am so jazzed that the sequel, and so if you're not clear on it, the sequel is to the Bumblebee movie that came out in 2018, not the Michael Bay franchise. So this is a new storyline, like a new continuity that is following that movie. So the characters are a bit more Generation 1 based on the original The Transformers from 1984 and that original toy line. And so I'm just super excited to see the Beast Wars and all those characters, the Maximals and the Predacons. That's who it is. So the Autobots and the Decepticons in Beast Wars are the Maximals and the Predacons, and they crash land on Earth, and there's too much energon on the planet, and they have to assume animal forms, their alternate forms. There's no vehicles around when they land on this form of Earth. It's hundreds of years ago, and the Maximals scan the living life forms around them, and they become, Optimus Primal and Rat Trap and Cheetor and Rhinox, and the Predacons, they scanned dinosaur fossils that are in the volcanic area that they landed in, which I thought was really cool. And they become a T-Rex and a raptor and a big pterodactyl, and the only living things around them are like a giant wasp and a big tarantula and a scorpion. Yeah, there's a scorpion too, because you got Scorponok. And they have all those great names like Rat Trap and Cheetor and Rhinox and Scorponok, and it's Megatron, so that's the only one that's actually Megatron. They didn't have the rights to all these characters around the time of Beast Wars, which I'll get into later also, because that comes back around for the Armada series. It's all about those tricky rights and who owns what and when. It becomes tricky, so they have to make all these interesting series. So that's one of the reasons why we had Beast Wars. That said, whatever the reason for having created the series to sell toys to children, to make an animated series, to make money, at the end of the day, it is a really good series that got a lot of attention, a lot of awards, and it's critiqued very well. It's said to have had a really good continuity, an amazing story. Some of the character arcs are amazing on it, and there was some real stakes. Even as kid entertainment. I've gone back and watched a lot of these episodes, and it's pretty good series still today, all these years later. And it was some amazing characters. I still have a Rat Trap little action figure, one of the re-releases, on my desk, and I totally remember having the action figures when I was a kid. One of the best things of Transformers are the action figures. Hasbro hits it out of the park. They understand points of articulation. I mean, that's basically the fundamentals of Transformers. You are transforming the action figure, and that is one of the highlights of my childhood, is having different Transformers and all the cool ones. And you always wanted to have Megatron and Optimus and whatever the top two henchmen. So I'll get into that. I don't want to spoil it, so we'll stick to Beast Wars. So Cheetor, or in this case Rat Trap. I really loved Rat Trap. And for your birthday, for Christmas, you got one or two, and if you got a good report card, maybe you got a third or a fourth, or you're out with your grandparents, and by the third season of the show, or in my case, by 96, I was only 2, so it was probably more closer into the late 90s, and thankfully they were still producing these action figures before Armada came around, which will be the second series we talk about in a second. So I'm just really grateful that I had the opportunity to enjoy that series and identify with later in life, because I didn't know that it was Transformers in Canada back then. I only found that out probably, I've known that for at least the last 10 years, so I always just thought it was cool, probably in high school, that it was Transformers in Canada. Sometime around Wikipedia, and I looked up Beast Wars when I wanted to watch it again, and I saw that thing right at the top of the page. It's in the title. It says Beast Wars, aka Transformers in Canada. I was like, oh, what? It's a pretty cool tidbit. I always bring that up in conversation. So it was really cool. And speaking of Rat Trap and these other characters, Rat Trap, Dinobot, and Waspinator are all voiced by the same voice actor, Scott McNeil, who has an amazing IMDb page. He has over 200 credits and basically is one of the most prominent voice actors of my childhood, and anybody listening, if you're born in the 90s, this gentleman Scott Scott McNeil has voiced so many characters from other series like Mummies Alive. It's plural. It's more than one mummy, which is probably going to be one of the upcoming episodes. But Six Transformers, it's amazing. He voiced 3 different characters in one series, and in just like the the intro, like those characters interact with each other, and it's amazing that they're basically just having a conversation with themselves doing like different voices. I always find that intriguing that they just sit in the booth and do both parts of the conversation. It's an interesting it's interesting to imagine. I'll try to do that with myself one day. Maybe I'll I'll write out a whole conversation and just be both parts of the conversation. And it'll be a fun exercise maybe. Let's just get back to Transformers. It was a little weird tangent on talking to yourself. So the next series is Transformers Armada. Let's talk about that now. And so by 2002, the next series that I remember that was really popular was Transformers Armada. There was a few Japanese follow-ups to Beast Wars, Beast Wars 2, Beast Wars Neo, Beastie's Machines, which were all imported into the UK and then the US, but honestly, I don't remember them very well, and I didn't have much awareness of the Transformers series at that point. And I mean, just, give me a break. I was 11 years old at the time, so by that was by the time the 2007 movie rolls around, I'm like 11, 12. But in 2002, I would only be in the 2nd grade. And so Transformers Armada is super appealing to me by this point. I've already fallen in love with Beast Wars, and now there's a new series to enjoy and jump on. And because it's the first series being produced by Hasbro and their Japanese counterpart Takara, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Armada begins a new continuity universe for the Transformers with no ties to any of the previous series. And similarly to Beast Wars, something that I alluded to before, part of the reasons why these series are being created at the time was they didn't have all the rights to all the characters. The previous production companies had rights to all the characters, and one in particular, when they began the Armada series, that they still didn't have the rights for was Bumblebee, and the character that they created was Hotshot. He turned into an Audi TT vehicle mode. He was a bit reckless, he was young, he was action heavy, he ran into danger head on, he was impetuous, as the character sheet reads. And this was the character that I grew up with in Armada, the yellow, kid-friendly, kid-appealing character that becomes friends with the lead human character in Armada. And funny anecdote on that, because of Armada and that I watched that series for all 52 episodes, and then there was the Energon and the Cybertron series that it created the Unicron series that goes up all the way 2005, 2006. When the 2007 trailer was released and you see the yellow Camaro, the black racing stripes, all that, I was like, oh yeah, Hotshot. Who the hell is Bumblebee? I was 11, 12 years old. I had very limited knowledge of I knew what Armada was. I knew what Beast Wars was. I was like, yeah, Transformers, awesome. There were some comic books that were published for the Hasbro for the Armada series. I had some of those, maybe not all of them, a handful, and so I had no idea who Bumblebee was. So I went home, or I was, I'm googling it, and I'm just like, Bumblebee, Transformers, and then I'm reading about the original series, all these original cartoons and who Bumblebee was, and it was funny because I totally expected it to be Hotshot, because the personalities were very similar to Hotshot, and it was interesting that he was supposed to be Bumblebee, and then because of licenses again, who owns what and when, they had to create a new character. And to me, I'll always love Hotshot. I liked Bumblebee in the movies, but I always thought he would be cooler if he had a red face and a little visor. That's the action action figure that I'm referring to. It was a very cool action figure. He transformed into a tiny little Audi TT, and it was very cool. All those points of articulation, Hasbro really understood Transformers. I mean, that's the fun of a Transformer, was to transform it from, you know, its robot mode to either its beast mode or its vehicle mode or dragon, T-Rex, video cassette, video recorder, whatever have you mode. And that was always the fun of it. And so the Armada series is also responsible for introducing mini-cons. And this is one of the things that I super remember and super loved about the Armada series, specifically the Street Action Mini-Con team. There was Highwire, which was a bicycle, Grindor, which was a skateboard, and Sure Shock, which was a moped, Vespa, scooter, whatever terminology you want to use. And oh my god, these were my favorite. I remember having all of them, like all the little action figures. They were super fun to play with, and they transformed super easily, and you could keep maybe one or two in a pocket. You know, it was super easy to walk around with them and just play with your Transformers action figures. And I remember playing Make Believe, and riding my bike pretending it was a Transformer, and taking corners, and it was fun. You grow up watching these series, and they put kids on futuristic robot Transformers, and then you go out and you play that with your friends. It was definitely cherished childhood memory of Transformers. So by the time the 2007 movie rolls around, because it's 5 years, I've finished elementary school, and I've watched at this point over 100 and something episodes of Transformers. If I watched all of Energon and Cybertron, if I watched the entire Unicron trilogy, maybe I watched 25%, even 30%. That's almost another 75 episodes, including Beast Wars. It's just hundreds of episodes of amazing Transformers content, and so by the time that I'm in high school, and now it's they're amping it up, live action. You get the trailer for it, and it's Michael Bay. It's big action. It's big explosions. It's Transformers on the big screen again. I am hyped. I am excited. I'm excited as I am now for Rise of the Beasts that I was then for just Transformers 2007 Michael Bay. It was man, it's nostalgia and hype are two of the best things about media, movies, TV shows. It's an emotion that you can latch onto, and it's when you talk about it, it just comes right back out, the way I'm doing it right now, the way I'm reminiscing about that 2007 Transformers movie, which I've probably watched 5 or 6 times a year. During pandemic, it became my security blanket of the year. When I would just stuck at home, I probably watched it once or twice a month, probably, if not more. I know that movie backwards and forwards, and I watched the behind the scenes, which is absolutely amazing. There's so much going on. They call it the Bayham in the Bayverse. Michael Bay is an intense director, but he knows what he's doing when it comes to action and executing stunts and getting the best scenes and getting the actors to perform exactly what he's detailed. And the cast and the crew that he works with on countless movies seems to really be in tune with what his vision is, and they make these amazing action sequences. In the first movie alone, a lot of those cars are real. They're flying around and being pulled on wires, and real explosions and debris is flying all over the cameraman, the crew. It's just everywhere, and it's a great example in probably one of the very iconic scenes, the Furby truck. Towards the end, when the two Transformers lift it straight up to block the torpedo, I guess, the missile that's been fired by one of the Decepticons. So that is real, not the Transformers, but the Furby truck. It's on a giant gear, and it's propped all the way up. It goes straight up, and then it explodes. Like, it literally explodes. Pieces go everywhere. It's actually amazing. It was, you watch the behind the scenes, and it's just amazing. And all the Army stuff, they did drills, and they get footage from the real Army, and that's Michael Bay has all of his connections and stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. And it's quite amazing the lengths that they went to. They use modified forklifts to crush cars, and they're blowing up billboards when shots are going off and all that. It's quite amazing. They had Shia LaBeouf actually wired up and on the edge of that building, all the way up there in the air, to do that scene when he's holding the cube in front of Megatron, and that cube is actually wired to his shirt. He's not actually holding it at all, which I find amazing. And there's so many interesting things, and I know people there's so many critiques about that movie that it's just fluff, or that they got some of the names wrong, and that they reused the same names in the next movie, or that they didn't want to introduce gender, so they didn't include RC, and there's a lot of critiques. You can say what you want about this series as a whole. Maybe it would go down in the reviews and people's critical acclaim of the movies, but in my opinion, they're all pretty good. The first one, it definitely stands out, and it was an achievement, definitely, in VFX and CGI, creating all these characters for like what they were able to accomplish at the time. And it's that achievement that they were able to pull off that was able to pave the way for movies like Iron Man, and what they were able to eventually do with the MCU. They use the same technology that was pioneered by Transformers and what came before that, and they just kept pushing what they were able to do with CGI. And I think that's definitely something that makes the first Transformers movie something that stands out when you look back at what it was just as an achievement in amazing cinematography with VFX. And I think that's amazing in and of itself. And all that said about the first Transformers movies, it's funny because one of the things that I've always said is in a critique of the movie is that you don't need Shia LaBeouf or Megan Fox at all. I would have really enjoyed the movie and the series if they had focused on the Maggie character, Rachel Taylor's character, and Glenn, Anthony Anderson, and like keep everything else, Josh Duhamel, John Voight, everything else, just take out all the screaming and the no and the Shia LaBeouf of it all, and I say that as a huge Shia LaBeouf fan. I love him in a lot of things, but he's kind of useless in these movies, and I think it would have been really interesting to have just focused on the smart people and the actually trained people, other than the one civilian who just happens to fall ass backwards into the alien happenstance over having a pair of glasses that he posted on eBay, when everybody else in the movie actually has a reason to be there. That was my biggest complaint about the original Transformers series. And then they just kind of continue that with Cade Yeager and all the other characters that they throw in. Like, he finds a Transformer and now he's in the middle of the war and he's gonna do this, and but everybody else has a reason to be there. And then they try to explain it backwards, and they're like, oh, they were part of the wiki line of Guardians and they're chosen ones, and it's like, come on. Maggie was a super intelligent hacker that worked for the government, and she, computer scientist woman that figured out that it was aliens, and she had her mentor, and Josh Duhamel, Lennox, he's the seasoned military guy that had first contact with the alien species, and he figured out that you need the saber rounds and that you could take them down and then trains with the Autobots. This all makes so much more sense than the Shia LaBeouf, this is my car, so I'm entitled to military bases and knowledge, and just stop screaming, dude. That was just totally my take on the first three movies, because everyone knows, well, the first two movies, Megan Fox is in it. The first three movies, Shia LaBeouf is in it. And then we traded for Cade Yeager, who is one of the Wahlbergs. I'm not Donnie, but the other one. His name is escaping me right now. And I mean, that's not dissing Shia LaBeouf at all. And even like all the things that were around Shia LaBeouf, like his parents. Like it's funny, when I was younger, I didn't really like the parent scenes. But as I got older, I actually quite enjoy them. Kevin Dunn is a great actor, and I've mentioned it before in the Small Soldiers episode that he plays the exact same character that he did in Small Soldiers. They even have similar lines in the second movie about like when they're in danger, like, "You're my son, I can't let you go," and that was hilarious. I'm curious if Michael Bay saw that, like he saw Small Soldiers and was like, "Hey, I want that guy to be the dad in Michael Bay." Michael Bay wants him to be in Michael Bay. That sounds inappropriate. He wants him to be that guy in Transformers, but exactly that guy, because that's how it came off if you've seen both movies. So I mean, all that said, I find it funny because there's a lot of like negative reviews and the critics don't like Transformers, but like the first movie made $700 million. The lowest grossing Transformers movie made $600 million, and two of them made $1 billion at the box office. So they're doing something right. But funnily enough, I had the same opinion of even some of the Wahlberg movies. The one, I think it's the first one, the one with Stanley Tucci. I think that Stanley Tucci should have been the main character of that movie. He had a better character arc. He realizes that he's the bad, like that his company is doing evil, shady stuff, and that the government is after him, and they're gonna blow it up, the seed thing, and he's absolutely hilarious through the whole movie. And so like totally, he like, instead of Cade Yeager, it should have been following his character, like he's the bad guy who becomes the good guy. That's such a better character arc. They managed to do this multiple times. Like, how is it that your supporting characters have better arcs and stories than your main characters, who are having arguments about the freaking statute of limitations on date rape with like Romeo and Juliet laws? Like, why was that a scene in the movie? This was a huge tangent on one of the other Transformer movies, but it needed to be said and it needed to be asked. Like, why was that a scene in a Transformers movie? It made no sense. Why was the daughter even in the movie? Like, you let your best friend get murdered in that scene, like in that movie, but there were so many things that they could have done better in the later movies, and so it's just like, it gets kind of aggravating, but like, I still love them at the same time. It's a love-hate relationship with the Transformers series. That's what I'm saying. At this point, that all changes by like the time we get to the Bumblebee movie, because they did some serious fan service, and Haley Steinfeld and John Cena were just absolutely superb, going back to basics and the Gen 1 design of Bumblebee, and giving us like real Optimus Gen 1 designs, and like the first 5 minutes where they're on Cybertron and it's like a huge battle. That was just amazing. And then like there was the Netflix like trilogy of series that starts on Cybertron and like goes all the way to Earth and literally reconnects with the Beast Wars, and like gives you like this whole arcing story, which is just like absolutely beautiful, and the animation is just superb. Like 2021 to 2020, I think 2020 to 2021, it's amazing how fast time goes by. But like those series were just amazing also. So like, as a Transformers fan, there's just so much to be like thankful for. And if you're critiquing it because like, oh, they used Devastator in the first movie and then they used them in the second movie, those are terrible movies. Like, really? That's what you took away from like 4 hours of amazing Transformer action and transforming, like just the sound engineering and the sound design and the like crazy pyrotechnics and all the acting and the crazy act, like, just that's what you took away from it. Oh, they mistook two of the characters and now I'm upset. Like, no, like, just go back, like, rewatch the movies and actually pay attention. And that's just a long tangent and a way of saying that I think movies are due some respect and some due credit, and there's some freedom that a director has, and it's an adaptation. There's a lot of source material, but it's an interpretation of characters and of the source material, and the directors have that freedom to change things a little bit, and maybe they don't get everything 100% right, but they are taking something and at the end of the day they're making something that we already enjoy. So, like, sit down, turn your brain off, eat some popcorn, and try to enjoy the overall thing and not be bothered by such little missteps, like a name or the wrong design or the color or this, or they're too tall, or it's not exactly the Optimus Prime that was in the original, because like there's so many different versions of the same character that this is just like you would in a comic book, and somebody has a new artistic design. The new artist is going to draw this Optimus Prime or this Bumblebee or this Megatron. He's a T-Rex, he's a freaking gun at one point. Megatron turned into a gun. Now he in this one he didn't really have a form in the Transformers, because he landed when there was like nothing around him and he got lost in ice, so he didn't have anything to scan to become. He wasn't a car, he wasn't really anything. And I thought that made sense. Like there was a reason he didn't look like anything. He got frozen in ice and he didn't, what was he supposed to turn into? A giant wooden ship? Like it was just, I thought that was just, it made sense. And I, as a young 12, 13-year-old, when I sat down to see that Transformers movie, I don't think there was a chance that I wasn't gonna like it for the rest of my life. That's for freaking sure. Like I was primed to be, pun intended, to be a Transformers live action, Michael Bay Bayverse fan by that point in my life. Like it was just, it was destiny for me to be a Transformers fan. I truly believe. I mean, that's just Armada, Beast Wars, the first Transformers movies. There are comic books. It went to Marvel actually to create the first comic books. When Hasbro was designing the action figures, they needed story. They created the Sam Witwicky character, which I don't think his name was Sam. It was like Sparkplug Witwicky, something like that. And there's so much source material if you look at the comic books, and then the original animated series, and then the Beast Wars, and then what IDW is doing now, and the rise of the Beast Wars. Transformers is huge. There's video games. There's more than a dozen series since 2007. There's 22 at this point. There was like 6 or 7 by the time that Armada was airing. So it's an empire of a franchise. Coming up on 40 years. Like I said at the top of the episode, 40 years of Transformers. And I'm still in the process of digesting it all and enjoying it. I'm going through some of the IDW comics. I'm reading some of the Marvel comics, and I'm watching I still haven't finished the Netflix series. It's a lot of viewing. I rewatched the Transformers movies like 100 times, and I'm definitely a huge Transformers fan, and I recommend it to anybody that likes robots, or if you're looking for a new franchise, something that has a lot of media, a lot of entertainment to consume. You're looking for something that'll keep you busy for quite a while. Definitely check out Transformers. If you want to check out the comic books, you can check out the IDW series, which is amazing. The artwork is absolutely superb. I'm currently reading those ones right now. I've only read the first 5 issues or so, but the story seems amazing. There's the old Marvel comic books, came out in the 80s. That's what really introduced all the different character names and came up with a lot of the themes and concepts that are still utilized in Transformers now. There are some tie-in comic books. There's an entire series for the Armada. There's like a tie-in comic book series for the Armada animated series. that's superb. I read a bunch of those when I was younger, and I have them. I have all the digital ones loaded up on my tablet. You can find those online. You can find some omnibus collections on Amazon. You can check out a lot of the series are streaming on Netflix or Amazon. Some of the series are aimed for the more younger children. A lot of them are aimed for like end of elementary school, preteen, teenagers. So some of the stories are still hard-hitting, like sci-fi adventures. They're not like too toddlered down. As a good rule of thumb, look at the character design. If they're really small with like giant arms and they look like little preschool characters, you could probably skip that series. If you're really like you want to consume all the Transformers, then by all means go ahead, but it might be a bit watered down ABC style Transformers and the story might not be too riveting, but like definitely Beast Wars Beast Wars and the Transformers, the original series, and like even Robots in Disguise, Armada, all the stuff on Netflix, a lot of the stuff in between has been really good. Some of it has, drama, comedy, action, adventure, what's it, and all that amazing stuff that goes into making a pretty good animated series. And I mean, there's 22 animated series, and it's like a $4 billion franchise empire of Transformers that exists now. So like totally recommend it. You're not gonna go wrong with Transformers in any of the media. Maybe video games, they haven't had the best track record with video games. A lot of tie-in video games, nothing open world or Hogwarts Legacies. If you're familiar with video games, it's not like a GTA, Halo track record when it comes to Transformers. But there's been it's fun to transform and go around to the city and do some missions and some tie-in stuff like that. So maybe focus on the readable, watchable media and don't buy a console and spend hundreds of dollars just to play a Transformers video game, would be my definite opinion on that one. And that's where this episode is going to wrap up on that recommendation and everything I've said about Transformers thus far. It's not going to change. I love it. I'm going to continue to rewatch the original Transformers and look forward to all the new iterations. I believe the IDW comic run actually just ended, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to be, starting something new soon, and they have the Rise of the Beast coming out. And there's an animated prequel. If we're to believe the rumors and what they tell us, it's an animated prequel to the original 2007 Michael Bay movie. So it's supposed to show us what actually happened on Cybertron. And then looking at some of the movie slots, there's a follow-up to Beast Wars, The Rise of the Beast, which is slotted for 2024. So there's just a ton of great, Transformers stuff in the past, and coming up quickly in the future. It's only a couple months now until the next Transformer movie, so I'm super looking forward to that. And there are more episodes of the Nerd Review coming up, so I'm looking forward to that too. This is season 2, episode 1, Transformers, the nerd review of Transformers. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you come back for more episodes. This has been the Nerd, signing off.